All right, guys, welcome back. It is now 2026. This is the first video on the main channel for this year. Now, listen, I know it's been a while, but my excuse is the holidays. I've been busy traveling. I visited home, but I did have time to play some games. So this is the season. December, January time is the season of just backlog. So I'm trying to get as much playtime as I can before school starts, before things begin to pick up again. And I said begin twice. But anyway, I'm back. We're gonna be on more of a consistent basis now since the holidays are over. I'll have something for y'all. I will try my best to have something for y'all weekly. So excuse me, I haven't gotten to any live streams yet, but I'll probably do a live stream in the upcoming weekend. So I'll drop this sometime this week. So I will give y'all something. But this came across my timeline. It was a top tier or the tier list of the gaming consoles, and I've been seeing a lot of people do videos on this, and this one in particular has gotten a lot of traction. Now granted, this came out last year, so it is kind of old, but it's just now my first time seeing this. So whether it's old or not, I'm still gonna react. And that's another thing, I'm gonna start to do more reaction videos. Now if y'all want to see more reactions, let me know. We're still doing the other stuff. We're still talking about the main games and all that, but reactions, we can start doing more of those. So stuff like this. But let me go ahead and pull this up. So game console tier list. So we're gonna start from the very beginning. We might pause it, we might talk about some things here and there, but it's good to have y'all back. I'm back. 2026, we here. We got a lot of heat dropping right now. I'm literally on the last boss of Expedition 33. I started a new gaming series, Alan Wake 2. Go to my second channel. Make sure to sub to that if y'all want. But those are the games I'm playing right now. I'm still on Twitch for Judgment. I'm still playing that. Our next game won't be until February. And you already know what game drops in February. That's Resident Evil 9. So be out on the lookout for that. But until then, this is what we got going on. So let me be quiet and let me play this video. Make sure to like, sub, comment down below if you want to see more. If you want to see more reactions like this, just let me know. All right, let's go.
I will be making some fanboys mad, and I'm gonna start with a shot at Big
Daddy Red.
You could argue that Nintendo is the most important console maker of all time. Originally a trading card and toy company, they found some initial success in gaming in the midway space, but it was the 1 million units of their first home console, the Color TV series.
And by the way, hate to pause it right now because it just started. Don't worry about the Christmas tree. That Christmas tree is gonna be up until February. We still in the winter season. So we still in the Christmas spirit, even though it's over. So if you was wondering, now you know.
That locked in their destiny. Too bad the thing's a D. And look, I'm sorry, but first generation consoles really don't hold up. And while our ranking system will account for the lower expectations that gamers would have had at the time, kind of an opinions adjusted for inflation, if you will, at the end of the day, a major consideration has to be, historical importance aside, how fun are the games today? And the good news is that when we reach Nintendo's third generation offering, the answer becomes very, in large part thanks to the inclusion of hardware scrolling backgrounds. Look, I know that doesn't sound like a huge deal, but this is what platforming looks like on.
So as far back as there will be a lot of pausing. now that I think about it. But as far back as I can really remember, I can only go back to the PS1. Now, I have dabbled in the Super Nintendo, I believe, but that was only one of my older cousins had it. Like stuff like the Atari, this is before my time. I am a late 90s baby. So the PS1 is as far back as I can go.
The competition. Start on the left, jump over up.
But I have heard about
right side
these
of the
games,
screen,
so
rinse and repeat.
I'm not new to this.
Woohoo.
I just wasn't in this era.
Look at him go! Woohoo! And upgraded cartridges would push its capabilities even further, changing video games forever. The Famicom, or Family Computer as it was known in Japan, quickly took the crown for the best-selling console in history. And thanks to Nintendo's savvy third-party publishing negotiations, living room-friendly branding, and focus on content quality,
Oh, those were the big cartridges.
in the challenging North American market. In our minds, the NES marks the end of console gaming's infancy and the beginning of its childhood years. It was the start of huge franchises like Final Fantasy, The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Mario, and more. And it was also affordable. It's an A. And the only reason,
Nintendo NES.
innovative as they were, most of its best games are essentially obsolete. Every franchise that I just mentioned got a bigger sequel on Nintendo's very next console.
Super Nintendo.
Better in almost.
That's the one I remember.
We're gonna get to that after this quick message from our sponsor.
Ridge! Hey,
Okay, we can see
is that
this
a
one.
boring old bifold wallet in your pocket?
We look at the future using the 3D power of Mode 7 and focus on what's most important.
So the Super Nintendo, this is the one that I remember. This is the one where it came in them big boxes. Of course, you still got the cartridges, and it came with this controller right here. Looking back, this controller is kind of trash, but it was inventive. That was the newest thing at the time. But this is where the Super Mario World, the Donkey Kong Country. I remember games like that. So I only dabbled in it a little bit.
Making great games. And this was clear right out of the gate with F-Zero, a flashy look at the future using the 3D power of Mode 7, and Super Mario World, which is still the best 2D Mario game. And the hits just kept coming.
Mario Kart.
A variety of games that ranges from
Forgot about Kirby.
still playable to
People don't talk about.
best ever in the RPG.
Well,
and
they do talk about Kirby, but
genres.
not as big as Mario.
Two, of course.
Donkey
but
Kong.
Super Nintendo is our first S tier.
I'll give it. I ain't got no problem with that.
Nintendo's last for a while. With competition ramping up on all sides and pirate flags flying high, Nintendo doubled down on their walled garden philosophy.
So this right here, this heavy hitter, this changed the game literally when it came to how Nintendo does 3D. This was a Super Mario 64 came on the scene. Mario Kart, Zelda, Donkey Kong, all those games was such and such 64. So this really skyrocketed. And I think this was around when PlayStation was around too. So this is when we start to 3D is starting to get more modernized,
leading to the big error that, along with several others, would tank this generation for them.
Yep.
Choosing proprietary cartridges over CDs. I get it. Nintendo's lucrative licensing agreements were easier to control when they ran the production line, but cartridges cost many times as much and hold only a fraction of the amount of data. This resulted in developers making serious compromises to run on Nintendo's 64-bit machine, which is a shame because the raw performance of the N64 was actually at the top of its generation. It just wouldn't be fully unlocked until decades later by community modders. Sometimes limitations breed creativity though, and the N64 ended up with a very strong library, at least if you focus on its goats. Ocarina of Time and
Yep.
Mario 64 still come up in those conversations, and most first-party titles on the system are, or at least were, outstanding, even if Yoshi got done kinda dirty. The problem is that the good
GoldenEye.
party games for the console
That was the
were
biggest thing.
rare. Get it? And we need to see a deeper library for a higher placement. It's gonna be a B.
I'm not mad at this. I'm not mad at this. So the Nintendo SNES, I can see how that can be an S. I can see how this is. You gotta have one of them systems that's going to just change the landscape of like everything. And we're gonna get to the other consoles, but you can definitely see how certain games took a turn for the best when it went from one generation to the next. You could clearly see an upgrade. That was a big turning point. This was too, but I'm not mad that it's at a B.
The good news is that Nintendo
I could
learned.
possibly put that at an A.
For the GameCube, they worked on their relationships, ensuring that it was easy to
And the
develop.
GameCube.
And they even chose optical media, albeit at a silly, smaller size. So the old purple lunchbox would end up with a more complete library, with some entries in long-running franchise even considered their best.
So I never had the GameCube growing up. I was never really. I did have a Game Boy Advance. That was my only little piece of Nintendo that I had with me. But you talking about Xbox, PlayStation, I was on that side. GameCube, I missed out on that whole catalog. I had to catch up when I got the Wii, and I'm sure they're gonna talk about in the upcoming stuff. But Super Smash Bros, just all the Mario Party game, like the Mario Party, Mario Sunshine, pretty much all the Zelda games, Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, was Beautiful Joe on PlayStation? Because I think it was just on GameCube. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I missed out on that. But Smash Bros, Melee, like I missed out on all this.
Like Smash Melee, Metroid Prime, and Resident Evil 4.
Okay.
The controller sucked Donkey Kong for pretty much any game.
This controller, I couldn't do. I couldn't get with. Like, the game, don't get me wrong, the GameCube has some top tier games on it, but the layout of this controller, nada. I did not like the way these buttons were all, this one's on the corner, these two on the ends. You got the big A button. You got one analog stick right here. You got another analog stick right here, and then you got the D-pad right here. And it just felt weird to hold the controller and having to do, even to this day, like I try to pick up this controller when I'm trying to play Smash, but bro, go ahead and give me that Pro controller. This is not for me. So
That wasn't specifically designed for it, but at least it wasn't as alien or flaccid as its older sibling. B. It's a B.
fair.
It's just too bad that nobody cared at the time, leading Nintendo.
Ooh, hold up. Okay, so we all know PS2 got this era, but damn, the GameCube really came in third. And the GameCube was like, I think it was either this or the Xbox this was the most, it had the most power to it. The Dreamcast, that's when stuff started to kind of fade out with this one. But damn, I didn't know that.
To a major shift in strategy that persists today. To avoid competing head-to-head with Microsoft and Sony's HD systems, Nintendo basically repackaged the Cube into an overclocked rectangle with some extra RAM and launched it alongside a motion controller that, also was originally.
That's crazy how they went from the GameCube and then head of Nintendo. Ooh, Sprite. Head of Nintendo was like
designed for the GameCube. At the time,
head of Nintendo was like, yo, we gotta do something different. And boy, did they give us something different. Motion detection. You got the Wii remote. That was the controller. Waving it around. Like, everybody had this. Now, I wasn't really into the GameCube like that. I missed that era. But when the Wii came on the scene, and I'm showing my age right now, but the Wii came out when I was in 3rd grade. I remember I got this system on Christmas 2007. I remember it like it was yesterday. And that was when I had to catch up with certain games on the Nintendo side. But we made it. This was definitely a good time. Now, it has some trash games on here. Like, let's make that clear. You got to remember, this was also going up against the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. Now, everybody had the Wii. But let's not get it twisted to where this was the best console.
The Wii felt a little bit disappointing considering its
disappointing
code name. But if you felt that way,
all right,
you were probably a real gamer, because for everyone else, it was something else. It was fun. It would be easy to dismiss the console based on the mountain of wiggle-waggle shovelware that was published.
That's what I said.
But
they had some trash ass games on here. We was just doing whatever with it. So let's not make it seem like this thing is perfect too. It may have been top tier when it had the motion sensor, because Xbox tried to do it Kinect, PlayStation tried to do it with the Move. They did it the best, but they also had a whole bunch of trash catalog too.
it was Nintendo's first backwards compatible home system, and its early lead in sales incentivized third-party developers.
God, I wanted Red Steel
to build out its library.
No More Heroes.
Ports weren't the best ones available. Now, sadly, for emulation and eShop enthusiasts, many of its most interesting titles are trapped there because of the novel control scheme, but we are still putting the Wii on the A tier for all the retirement homes that are still bowling and golfing.
Because you got to remember, when this system came out, people that were not gamers got this. They were working on their fitness goals. You had old people playing on the Wii Sports, the Wii Resorts, bowling, tennis, golf. Like, this opened up a lot more consumers, and this was a lot more family friendly when it came to like other games. You didn't have to be a gamer to get on the Wii. Unfortunately,
like the people in those homes, the Wii's gimmicks did get kind of old, and its successor was probably Nintendo's lowest point. It had more power than the aging 7th gen hardware that Nintendo launched it against. It also had confusing branding.
I forgot about the Wii U. This piece of garbage right here, I don't know where or why they did what they did with this. Because we try to forget about this. It was the GameCube, it was the 64, the GameCube, the Wii, and then we just go to the Switch. We don't talk about this. Yeah, I had no desire to get this thing. They tried to make it seem like it's a console and then you could detach it, and like how the Switch is, but this was not it. And the games on here wasn't hitting like that. So this was a very short period. This was not working.
A portable controller screen gimmick that most games completely failed to take advantage of. Not helping matters, new first-party games were slow to show up due to a focus on HD remasters, which led to slow sales, which led to poor third-party support again. It did get some unironically great games, including kicking off Mario Kart 8 of Nintendo refusing to give us another
They held on to this one for life.
There are fewer and fewer reasons to leave an unmodded Wii U plugged in, other than its ability to output older Wii games via HDMI. we're gonna give it a C. Luckily, the Switch immediately switched up the conversation.
I would have gave it. I'm okay with where it's at. Only because they had games that lasted all the way up until now. Now, we skip that trash and we go to this. This is one of the highest selling consoles ever. I knew I was going to get the Switch. Like, just the idea that you can have something like this, dock it to your TV, and then you can take it with you. Now, they attempted to do that with this trash thing that's behind this, but it just did not work. Did not feel the same. All you had to do was take these little detachable things off, dock it, and you could play on the TV. Or if you wanted to go somewhere, you could undock it and then take it with you, and you could play it like this. Change the game.
Delivering on the hybrid handheld promises of the Wii U and putting Nintendo back on top. It launched with what is arguably the best game from one of the strongest game franchises.
Breath of the Wild.
That followed it up
when the launch titles for this game or for this system, one of arguably, and I'm not really a Legend of Zelda fan like that, but I respect the franchise. I respect the series. The Switch put Nintendo back on the map, just like how we said. And with the launch titles that they had that Donkey Kong, not Donkey Kong Country Returns, but they had that Freeze. They had Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. That's honestly really all they needed. But yeah, that one of the best.
With banger after banger.
Smash Bros. Ultimate.
The enormous install base has prompted developers to move heaven and earth to
139.6 mil.
Sometimes a pretty good experience.
Oof, that's another thing.
Console is little more than an Nvidia Shield tablet with custom.
Yep. So the ports, if you trying to do big AAA games like Cyberpunk, like The Witcher, GTA, certain shooters, certain fighting games, it's not gonna port so well compared to the Xbox and the PlayStation. That's why I try to stay away from the third party games when it comes to the Switch. Now, when it comes to strictly Nintendo base, I'm all for it, but I try not to get any third-party games when it comes to this.
Firmware and controllers. It is underpowered compared to the machines of today and even the machines of its time, but it is a great way to pack Mario and the gang into the screen-safe slot of your LTT backpack, lttstore.com. We are giving the Switch our second S for revitalizing the handheld game.
I agree.
As for the future,
I agree.
It remains to be seen whether Nintendo can retain the Switch's momentum against the rise of PC handhelds and the rumors of Sony's return, not to mention Microsoft's entry, but I'm hopeful. Surely the good, bad pattern can't continue. Speaking of things that...
And then we get the Switch 2. Now, I've been hearing the Switch 2 it was mixed when it first came out, but I'm sure and it came out last year. So it just needs to build up that catalog. We got some heavy hitter games that are on it already. We got some heavy hitters that's coming out this year, 2026. So we just got to give it a little bit more time, but they really didn't completely upgrade anything. Like visually it looks the same. Like it's the same. It just has a 2 on it. So it's just a little bit of a bigger screen, better resolution, and you're able to play other third-party games kind of compared to how the PS4 is now. So I have no desire to get the Switch 2. Yeah, I'm good with what I got. But as far as sales go, it's doing pretty good.
Continue, Sega.
Sega.
Boy, do they ever have weirder origins than I realized. The Japanese giant was founded by Americans who sold slot machines to US Army bases, which is why they were at one point called Service Games. Weird foreshadowing.
Okay.
But okay. Sega's first home console, like Nintendo's, was designed to play stripped-down arcade ports, and the SG-1000 was in that sense better than the color TV, with interchangeable cartridges and a fair bit more power, which is neat, but the MK3, or as you might know it in the West, the Master System, is where Sega's sales went parabolic. We are giving the SG-1000 a D, which won't surprise anyone, and we're giving the Master System a C, which will surprise folks in the regions where it would go on to have an exceptionally long life with some kind of impressive peripherals. Everywhere else, though,
I didn't know about this.
Focus on arcade-style games and Sega's notoriously bad habit of supplanting their systems a little too quickly. Just 3 years after the Master System, Sega launched the Mega Drive, or Genesis for us Yankerdoodles, powered by the Motorola.
I remember the Genesis.
A familiar 16-bit chip that powered countless other arcade games and home computers. Sega brought blast processing to the party, which is a real thing, we think. No one is 100% sure what it was, but most likely it referred to DMA, or the ability to directly drive a CRT through brute force, regardless of the VDP's palette limitations. It also had a more powerful CPU than the Super Nintendo, which arrived 2 whole years later, and thanks to some clever design choices, it even had backwards compatibility with Master System games. Not that it needed it. The Genesis has a phenomenal library that is undeniably Sega's best. Even beyond the
Them cases came out like them Blockbuster cases.
Designed to appeal to a slightly more mature audience, thanks to Sega's looser third-party ecosystem, and many Genesis games just straight up play better than their SNES competition.
Interesting.
Even if they usually look a little worse. I wanted so badly to put it in the S tier, but before we can rank it, we need to talk about some of the truly baffling moves that Sega made late on in its life cycle. First, they launched a CD add-on. That was actually a mild success, allowing its aging 80s hardware to push past the newer SNES in some key ways, like improved sprite scaling, as well as CD quality audio and the ability to play interactive FMV video games, if you're into those. But then, as this sort of next-gen stopgap, Sega designed and launched the 32X add-on around the same time that their completely next-gen full 32-bit console, the Saturn, would launch in Japan. Making matters much worse, Sega surprise launched the console 4 months early in North America, only for Sony to immediately counter by announcing the PlayStation would be just $299.
Damn.
So if you're confused trying to follow exactly what I'm talking about here, imagine how consumers felt at the time. What did I just buy? And what is this new thing? Sega, in one stroke, burnt the goodwill that they had fought so hard to claim from Nintendo, and suddenly they were behind by a lot. Genesis, A. As for the Saturn, it was a complete bust everywhere but Japan, which I guess is what happens when you go from, we're gonna make the best darn 2D system for true arcade to, oh my God, here comes Sony, and they've got 3D. Now, in hindsight, the Saturn has a pretty incredible library of hidden gems that I would highly recommend that you check out. But in the 90s, when 3D was the new hotness, developers just couldn't be arsed to learn its eccentric 4-chip architecture, and Sega's penultimate effort would pave the way for the company's overall exit from the console hardware space. We're giving it a C for, come on, it at least deserved a chance. The Saturn is the most underrated system that Sega has ever made, maybe even by us. And I'm saying that knowing that most people would think that award goes to Sega's final effort, the Dreamcast. With a modem for network play built.
Now the Dreamcast, I do remember this. I know one person that had the system, but other than that, this was not it for me. But I do remember this console did have some bangers on here. So it just didn't last a long time. When the PlayStation came around, or when the PS2 wiped everything out. So this didn't exist no more.
Right in, and a high quality VGA capable output, it was truly ahead of its time. And between great ports to the system, not to mention a slew of phenomenal new
Sonic Adventure was the biggest one.
would get off to the strongest start yet in video game history. That is, until a big ol' black DVD player, that we're gonna get to in a bit, don't worry,
I just said it.
arrived holding its pink slip. Less than 3 years after its launch, Sega announced that not only was the Dreamcast headed out behind the barn, their entire console business was going with it. Sega, we salute you for your service, and we're giving the Dreamcast a strong B for being something that is still worth dusting off to this day. The good news is that in the same year that Sega admitted defeat, a new contender would pick up their torch.
Xbox.
Make a little gaming machine.
Ooh, I remember, man.
What's cool is you can
I had a lot of memories with this system right here. So we did have this in the household. My older brother had it. But the games I remember vividly, the games that was on here: SSX Tricky, Halo, that alone, Splinter Cell. This was now this is the time. This is where we're getting into the new generation, the generation that I remember, that I grew up in. This thing has so much potential. Not so much potential. It has so many games on here, and Microsoft was beginning to have its own thing in competition with Sony and Nintendo. But yeah, and them big brick controllers.
still see some of that Sega DNA in the original Windows 2000 light machine. 6 face buttons,
Yep.
focus on network play, and even rumored Dreamcast compatibility, though that never came to fruition in spite of the fact that it used similar Windows CE and DirectX development tools. I mean, sure, the Xbox compared to the fully custom chips that the competition was using was basically a glorified Pentium 3 computer with a big
This controller ass. Like, looking back at it now, this was not it. The shape of the controller, you got the analog. Well, you got that for the Xbox 360 too, but it just felt different with the GameCube controller. I can't explain it, but the buttons was kind of, and I'm looking at the Xbox, because I got an Xbox One controller right now. And looking at that and comparing it to this, major upgrade. I don't even remember what these two black and white buttons are. And this thing was a brick. Jeez Louise.
controller. Like, what were they thinking big? But it was the most powerful system of its time, meaning that it often had the best version of multi-platform titles, not to mention a
Halo.
solid library of exclusives.
Conquer.
This is before Microsoft settled into their safe spaces of Halo, Gears, and Forza, and they pushed weird character platformers and epic RPGs that competing machines just couldn't even hope to run. The Xbox was off to a rocking start. A tier. And
Did The Rock, because I remember, because he was with Bill, yeah, that picture with Bill Gates. Was he the first person to announce what the Xbox was? Because I think that was at an E3 showing. I don't know. I may be wrong. Somebody let me know.
that was just the beginning. Just 4 years later came the
Now this bad boy right here, when you talking about an upgrade, Now, I'm going to say this. The Xbox 360 controller is probably top 3 best controllers for me personally. This right here changed everything. And I know I keep saying it changed everything, but when you take a jump from the PS2, the Xbox 360, the GameCube era, and then you jump to the next generation, I forgot what number of generation that is, but graphically, that's where everything, it took a big turn.
Xbox 360. With easily the best online service and games delivery of that generation, a modest entry price, and developer-friendly hardware.
Golly, bro. Looking at these prices back then.
Online service and games delivery of that generation.
Hold on.
Just 4 years later came the Xbox 2.
4 years later.
With easily the best online service and games delivery of that generation, a modest entry price.
The basic one is $299. The Pro is $399. Simpler times. Damn.
And developer-friendly hardware, the 360 was a no-nonsense gaming machine for gamers, where pretty much any multi-platform.
That's when you're getting introduced to bigger games. Mass Effect. You got Gears, Batman, GTA 4. That's when we knew. Oh, this is the next. We now in the future. Now was the turning point. When GTA 4 came out in 2008, I knew that we in a different time now. Yeah, man, the simpler times
arrive either first or better or both. Even franchises that had been Sony
Modern Warfare 2
showing up on the Microsoft machine. I mean, sure, it doesn't have a huge list of its own exclusives, but there are some doozies in there, and Microsoft's big push in Japan gave the 360 the best Japanese library of any Xbox system. Can someone please remaster Lost Odyssey, for crying out loud? Reliability issues aside, the 360
I remember that.
Microsoft's finest and is an easy S for
I'll go with the S tier
of Halo 3 that kept millions from proper rest. Sadly though, Microsoft would pull a big dumb and try to make their next-gen Xbox One.
Yeah, this one wasn't
for everything. It had HDMI input for cable box pass-through, mandatory Kinect integration for voice and motion controls, and worst of all, they angered gamers right out of the gate by simultaneously announcing an always-online DRM scheme that, in hindsight, seems pretty simple.
That's when Xbox and Microsoft got too big for their britches and got a little too cocky with it and thought they could. This isn't a gaming console no more. This is an entertainment system for everything. And they wasn't honing in on the gaming anymore. And that was a big step down from what they did with the Xbox 360. Yeah, it completely different. I mean, people still got it because it was the newest thing. But when they start to add in that Kinect, when they start to add in a whole bunch of this other stuff that we really didn't need like that, then that's where they kind of Microsoft veered off.
Similar to where we ended up, but I guess people weren't ready to hear it. This poor messaging, combined with underpowered hardware and a higher price, contributed to a major loss to the PS4, which had outsold it 2-1 by the end of 2017.
Wow.
And with Sony on solid footing again after their early PS3 stumbles, PlayStation exclusives started taking laps around Microsoft's struggling Xbox franchises. To Microsoft's credit, the Xbox team started dialing back the cable box connectness of the machine and did a much better job of supporting their Windows friends, but outside of Gears and
See, Windows, you can get a PC for that. See, they wasn't honing in on the exclusives no more. And that's when this was the beginning, to me, this was the beginning of, from what I saw of Xboxes. They slowly losing. They ain't taking the lead like how they were. They're not in, the gap wasn't as big as it, like there was a small gap. Now there was competition between the Wii, PS3, Xbox 360, but when it came to the PS4, the Switch, Xbox One was falling behind. PS4 had the exclusives. Nintendo, they just had their Switch. What's Xbox really doing?
Forza, it was kind of a wasteland. Microsoft clearly understood their advantage, though, in building cloud and data center services, and followed up their successful Xbox Live subscription with Game Pass, an all-you-can-eat gaming subscription.
That's true.
Frankly, just smokes the competition for value. Unfortunately,
when it was a good value, you couldn't beat that Xbox Game Pass because the stuff, it was a bang for your buck. And it had a lot of good value to it.
It was too late in the cycle, and they knew it. The one gets a C.
I would have gave it a C.
I wish I was playing as Master Chief, not Jameson Locke. Which brings us to the 9th generation Xbox, or boxes. For the first time, we got 2 versions with wildly different performance characteristics, and for the second time, we got to focus on services rather than games. The series continue Microsoft's trend of cross-platform play and backwards compatibility, which is great.
That's cool.
But also continue Microsoft's trend of, especially the latter, being kind of spotty. Microsoft has gone on an aggressive game studio gobbling spree, which theoretically should lead to some,
and it owns all of these studios right here,
really exciting box mover titles, but we're kind of still waiting to see them, and apparently so are Microsoft's customers, with combined sales of the 2 Xbox Series.
PS5 blew this thing out the water. Sony announced that it had just sold a little more than 50 million PS5s. We can estimate the Xbox Series X and S sales sit at around 27 million.
Series is falling well behind the PS5. Now, it's still a bit early to give the Xbox Series a definitive rank, but in spite of its poor sales, we're actually leaning towards a B for.
I give it a B. I'm not mad at it. It's between a B and a C. I'd say C plus at best for me. Because ain't nobody really checking the Xbox. Nobody talks about the Xbox like that, how they used to. Either you got a Switch, PS5, or PC. Sad to say.
Best darn gaming PC that you can buy for $300 or $500, or sometimes even,
unless you're a real diehard Xbox fan.
Series and the other consoles that you can still buy. But before we rank the rest of those, I want to go back in time to some things that you can't buy. In 1977, Nolan Bushnell started Chuck E. Cheese's. That franchise gets an F for its crappy pizza and its creepy rat.
Damn.
I promise I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
5 years earlier, he also co-founded Atari, maker of PC, and the VCS, or as many now call it, the 2600. It was one of the most important machines for getting games into people's homes, even if the software feels painfully primitive now.
We gotta respect the origins on where this stuff all came from. So, C is cool. C is cool.
Almost gave it an A for arguably most important console of all time, but we're going with a B for best not play this unless you have an academic interest. As for the 5200, it came 5 years later with barely any tech improvement and a non-existent game library, meaning that we've got our first F tier here, folks. Quite you. As for the 7800, it gets a C, and that's thanks only to its backwards compatibility with the 2600. As for the Jaguar, hard to program for, expensive, and once again, no game library. That's another F, and that was the end of their console making days. So
That system looks trash.
sorry, Atari, I'll see you later. Now for some of Atari's
Oh, like a CD
competitors.
player.
Like the Channel F. Is it for fun or is it for its ranking? It was the first proper home console with a real processor and ROM carts, but other than that, not much else to
1976.
say about it. We're gonna go with a D. Magnavox Odyssey? That thing came out in 1972. Good Lord, that's 5 years before the 2600. For that alone, it gets a C. Most Odyssey 2 games have exclamation points in their titles, so D! The Intellivision, Mattel's only console other than one built around scanning RFID cards. We're gonna give that one a C. And
See, these other ones, the Atari 7800, Odyssey, Fairchild Jaguar, like, this is the stuff that I'm not too familiar, way before my time.
the Connecticut Leather Company, yes, that is what Coleco stands for. ColecoVision was a technical juggernaut compared to its contemporaries, and it gets a C as well. Enough of that though, let's jump forward a decade. The PC Engine / TurboGrafx 16 was mostly ignored in the West, but in Japan, outsold the Mega Drive and had a robust library of games that make good use of the CD add-on. We're giving it a B. The Neo Geo was super cool. It literally brought
I do remember this name come up. Neo Geo.
machines power into your house, and all it cost you was nearly the same as an arcade
Jesus.
machine. B anyway. As for the Philips CDI, that cost over $2,000 in today's money.
It's yours, my friend.
Yo.
As long as you have enough rubies.
As for the Amiga CD32, this one I don't know. It's possible it's amazing, but at these kinds of prices for working units, I'm never
Yikes.
going to know. F for get f***ed collectors. Finally, rounding out our others list, we've got the 3DO, and it's gonna crawl into a D for having a few decent games and ports, even though it was a huge waste of money for both consumers and for its creators.
Talk about PlayStation!
All right, I was almost there anyway. PCFXD, there. The origin of the PlayStation is truly a wild tale.
This is where we get to where I was at. This is the machine of all machines. Damn, I remember when this came through, we had this. We definitely had this. And like how I said, the Xbox 360 controller is probably top 3. The PlayStation controller. Which one? I'm gonna have to think on that, but it's up there as one of them. But this one right here, Spyro, Resident Evil, Crash Bandicoot. I even had the one of the Harry Potter games, Sorcerer's Stone, Tomb Raider. When you talking about exclusives, gee.
Corporate backstabbery and poor business sense. Through its early years, Sony was a big player in electronics
And they introduced the 3D aspect, because you in the night now. We getting into the 90s. Tech is starting to evolve now, and you starting to get into the 3D. Oh, Metal Gear Solid. How could I forget that? Like, you starting to get into the 3D world.
and had become one of Japan's biggest exporters. Their collaboration with Philips on the invention of the compact disc was revolutionizing the media world.
And they was using CDs. Everybody else was using cartridges. See, Sony, he was like, how can we stand out? Some CDs.
But it would take Maverick engineer Ken Kutaragi to finally turn its R&D engine toward video gaming by forging a backroom deal to manufacture the Super Nintendo's sound chip. This sound chip led to a second, much more important deal with Nintendo, one for Sony to produce a CD-ROM version of the Super Famicom called the PlayStation. Now, as you may already know, that deal did not go as planned, and depending on who you ask, you'll get a very different answer to the question of who screwed over who. On the one hand, Sony was the bigger company and had been using its muscle to impose very unfavorable contract terms, including sole international rights to every game developed for the system and full control of licensing for every
Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy was one of the biggest, Final Fantasy VII in particular. One of the biggest games of the PS1.
music and film deal. On the other hand, Nintendo had a history of tight and exclusive control over their consoles. They were worried about Sony using them as a stepping stone to a dominant position in video games. So they secretly sent emissaries to negotiate a more favorable arrangement elsewhere. One single day then, after Sony publicly announced their joint console at CES 1991, Nintendo slapped them in the face by abandoning both the contract and the years of co-development. They announced a partnership with Sony's collaborator on the CD format, Philips, and Sony was next. Some of the old guard were
I didn't know that.
used to retreat from the video game space anyway, while others favored just bending the knee to Nintendo and trying to salvage something from the original deal. There were even talks with SEGA of America about developing a console together with them, but that idea was killed when the CEO of SEGA apparently said, "That's a stupid idea. Sony doesn't know how to make hardware, they don't know how to make software either. Why do we want to do this?" Hindsight really is a hell of a drug, folks.
Facts.
As for Kutaragi, I think we all know where he stood on this. He was still seeing red from his fresh embarrassment at CES and wanted to build it himself. Importantly, he had a key ally. The president of Sony partially obfuscated what he was doing from the Sony board by moving his team from headquarters to Sony Music Entertainment Japan. And while they worked, some key things happened. The success of Virtua Fighter confirmed that 3D graphics was the way forward. And the failure of the 3DO and the
40, damn, Super Nintendo got 49.1 mil.
Jaguar proved that their console would either live or die by third-party support. So, a team from Sony's record label was sent to hundreds of studios to garner support. And their pitch? It was simple, but it was effective. They promised easy development and fair promotion of first-party and third-party games. Over 250 teams showed interest, and the rest is history.
God, yo, business deal for the win, right? Of that 90s generation right here. Now the PS1 may not be the most powerful machine, but you can get it for the cheap that people can actually afford. We're gonna have exclusive gaming of exclusive games, and look where they at now.
Just 2 days after their North American launch, Sony had outsold the Sega Saturn's entire 5-month run.
That's
In the UK,
did he say 2 days?
the Sega Saturn's entire 5-month run. In the UK,
Did he say 2 days?
2 days
2 days. That's
their North American
crazy.
launch, Sony had outsold the Sega Saturn's entire
Sega Saturn. It's a wrap for you. It's a wrap.
5-month run. In the UK,
And they had 5 months. PS1 beat them out in 2 days.
it outsold Sega's console 3-1, and by the end of their first year, Sony had taken a whopping 20% of the American video game market.
That's
They were
crazy.
selling so many games that they, co-inventor of the CD, needed to build new CD printing facilities to keep up.
Do you realize how major that is? Co-owner of the CD, the person who actually invented the CD, he was like, yo, we need to make more CDs because this console is selling like hotcakes. And we got so many games out right now. People are buying this left and right. The manufacturing plant had to double up, triple up, just because of the PlayStation. That's insane. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
with the outrageous demand. And even when Nintendo's 5th gen competitor showed up 2 years later, powered by superior 3D horsepower, not to mention iconic IPs, the PlayStation only picked up more steam. By the end of its life in 2006, the PlayStation had sold over 102 million units.
That's
more
insane.
than double the sales of the N64 and the Saturn combined. And a huge part of that success is its enormous library of games. It's got more games than any console that
Resident Evil,
or any console
Ape
that
Escape,
came since, reaching a final count of
Chrono Cross,
7,118 titles.
Twisted Metal,
And it wasn't
another
just
big one.
quantity either. I mean, it's easy to find knocks against the PS1, like the atrocious loading times. But what you cannot argue with is the depth of its library. Not to mention its appeal to gamers who were, some of them, growing out of Nintendo's stubbornly family-friendly approach. It's an S tier for 2 reasons. One,
Now, if I had to, I would put this. Damn, it's between. I would give it like an A plus because what the PS2 did jumped them up even higher. That would be the console if for PlayStation any console, it would be that one as S tier. PS1, I would put it at an A plus or an A tier.
because we didn't have a higher rank.
But you can put both.
And 2, because if we ranked it anything else, I would first be murdered by my staff and then dragged through the street by the rest of you. Now, Sony knew the secret to the PS2's early
And then we get to the big dog. This is my console. This is what I grew up on. This is my love for gaming. I've been playing since what, 4, 5 years old. It started with this. But when this came out, I was all in. I was all in. You couldn't stop me with this one. When you're talking about catalog alone, it beats out every console. Even now, it beats out every console.
success was going to be its great value. It offered backwards compatibility with the PS1.
The amount of things that you could do with this PlayStation 2 when they changed it, or when the next step was that we about to make a console. How can we make this better? How can we make this a step above? And when you're talking about inventing something completely new, changing how we see gaming now, this was a big part. The fact that you could play a game, it had backwards compatibility, and you could play DVDs on here. They won. They won. You could play music on here, CDs, albums on here. And the backwards compatibility was the biggest thing for me, because I was still playing PS1 games on the PS2.
To using its older brother's CPU as an I/O controller, and more importantly,
Only for $300.
DVD players available. So, even though the PS2's library might have taken a few years to fill out due to its somewhat exotic architecture,
And you got some of the best titles on this console. Metal Gear Solid, how we just said, Final Fantasy X, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter, God of War. Golly, bro, you have some bangers on this one.
there were strong reasons to buy it from day one, and buy it we did. The PS2 sales almost immediately choked out the Dreamcast and would come close to tripling the sales of Sega's machine, the GameCube, and the original Xbox.
All of these put together ×3, and this PlayStation 2 still beat out all 3 of those ×3.
Combined. The PS2 is still the most sellingest game console of all time, though the Switch is nipping at its heels. And by the end of its...
I think the Switch did beat the PS2. I think it did. Which is fair. But the number one console for me is always going to be that PS2. GTA. When GTA 3 came out on the PS2, game changer.
Decade plus of support, it had over 2,500 games to play, with more in the GOAT conversation than probably any other machine. The PS2 is an easy
That's
S
an
tier.
easy S.
Our rating system is the number one console of all time.
Yep.
Oh, so that means it's downhill from here then, right? That's right. Here comes Sony's first speed bump.
So this was when the PS3, 2005, 2006. This was when, I'm gonna talk about the good things first. Is when that turning point that I was talking about earlier. You could really see it becoming more graphically better. But I would say the Xbox 360 edged it out a little bit. I would say PS3 was in competition with them only because of the exclusives. And the machine itself, we talking about the base console, it was not it. And even when it first came out, even back then, I knew this is way too expensive. This console was like $600 when it first like dropped. There was no way. It still sold, but there was no way I was getting a console for $600. That was insane. And the way the base PS3 just looks, it just looks clunky and heavy. I don't like the shape or the feel of that machine. It ain't it. Because when we had the PS3, we had the PS3 Slim. Way better, but this,
In their efforts to replicate the PS2's success by making it once again a Trojan horse for the latest optical media, and
oh, that was another thing too. You could still play DVDs on here, and you could still and the next big thing was the Blu-rays. You was able to play Blu-ray disc on here. That was also a big thing back then.
full-on backwards compatibility by stuffing a PS2 into it, not to mention the fact that they used a hard-to-develop-for supercomputer chip. The PS3's initial asking price ended up being a major friction point for consumers.
Oh, I see. So the 20 giga, that's insane how this is 20 gigabytes. Do you know how many games that you could alone can put on that? Now go to today. Do you know how many games, or you know how little games you can put on this much space on here? Barely none. So the 20 gigabyte was $499 and the 60 gigabyte was $59.90. Was $599. Okay.
Consumers. Making matters worse, the launch title lineup was weak, and ports to the system
Oh wait, hold up. Let me see that again.
inferior to those on the Xbox 360. So for years,
I didn't see that.
making matters worse, the launch title
Launch titles. Oh yeah, launch titles are always gonna be trash. Let me not say launch titles are always gonna be trash. This generation's was trash. So Tony Hawk's Project 8, Tiger Woods, Ridge Racer, NHL, these are just sports games. Call of Duty 3. And then the only ones you really had was Resistance and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Damn.
lineup was weak, and ports to the system were generally inferior to those on the Xbox 360. So for years, the PS3 looked like it was the clear loser of the 7th generation, a first for Sony.
Now don't get it twisted. PS3 it had some bangers though when it later on down the line. But when it first dropped, you really couldn't. There was really no good games. They had to kind of build up to that.
However, eventually, Sony Studios would figure out how to maximize the performance of its unusual cell processor and would produce some impressive exclusives.
And that was at the tail. I remember this vividly. PlayStation 3, that last big year was that 2013. And that was when they announced the PS4. It was coming out next year. But Jesus, with that last year, they left out with a bang. You talking about GTA 5. You talking about Assassin's Creed Black Flag, I think. You talking about Tomb Raider. Last of Us. 2013 was a year.
Helping to undo at least some of that damage. Actually, a lot of it. I mean, if I was told that I could never play a video game again unless it was on a PS3, I would still have plenty to play, much of which is pretty goated, but it can't be an S. Let's call it an A. Luckily though, Sony would learn from some of its mistakes, and the PS4 would be a no-nonsense, gaming-first oasis.
Now the PS4, they launched titles wasn't good either. But as with the PS3, they had to build up to that. Because on the PS4, we got a lot of good or great exclusives.
In Microsoft's weird, always watching cable TV world. Sony Studios immediately
Uncharted 4, yep.
There wasn't a year,
Last of Us 2,
maybe 2013 and 2019, that didn't have several games that made gamers sit up and go, shoot, I'm gonna need a PS4.
Yep.
Now, eventually we got a lot of those titles on PC, but if N64 is a B and PS3 is an A, PS4 has got to be an S.
I don't know if I would call that an S. I would call that an A. The highest I can give it is an A+. Because when we're talking about S's, we're talking about consoles that changed the whole landscape of how we play games today. Like, it had to take a turning point. A specific turning point. Yeah. And the impact that these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that these 5 had, I would put this down to an A. At the most, I could give it an A.
And this is especially highlighted by the perception, or maybe it's just us, that Sony's 9th gen white monolith.
Because now you just put 3 PlayStation consoles on S tier.
Feels more like a PS4 more proer.
I can agree with that. With the PS5, and I remember the struggle it was to get these consoles when it first came out in 2020. But this is just a better PS4. So now you pick up more games, it's gonna be more content, more quality. But them first launch titles, it wasn't like how it is now. But yeah, that PS5 2020, it dropped in 2020. It is now 2026. So and we have gotten some great games. Top tier games, S tier games. But I feel like the PS5 needs a little bit more time until we get a newer console. It needs more time.
I mean, it's a more powerful but still x86 gaming focused computer. It's got full compatibility with PS4 games, which is great. And we're only in year 4 with a pretty strong library of titles. But we can't help feeling a little desperate for some risk taking here instead of just more
I think when it will come to the risk taking, I think that's going to be with the PS6. Like there are certain, and that's why I say with the S tier, there's certain things that the company had to do to take risks to make them S tiers. PS1 to PS2, that was a big jump. PS2 to PS3 was a big jump. The PS4 to PS5, but I believe that PS6, that's gonna take it. That's gonna be there's gonna be a difference. You're gonna clearly see the difference, and I think that's gonna be with the PS6. So,
hashing of the working formulas. I also don't love the direction they've taken their subscription services. Backwards compatibility not only is severely lacking, but it's locked behind reoccurring payments. And cloud saves? Really, you guys? Who do you think you are? Nintendo? You wish. A tier. That is, unless something big changes. Like, if I stopped doing
I'm not mad at that.
segues to sponsors.
Squarespace. Creating your own website doesn't have to be difficult. Luckily with Squarespace, it isn't. Their all-in-one platform makes it easy to get your website up and running quickly, and a 24-hour support team 7 days a week.
Now we know you guys are gonna have different.
okay, so overall, let me look at his list.
This is especially highlighted by the perception, or maybe it's just us, that Sony's 9th gen white monolith feels just more recurring payments and cloud saves? Really, you guys? Who do you think you are? Nintendo? You wish. A tier. That is.
Okay, so looking at the list now, let me go to my camera so I can look. Okay, looking at all of this, I do pretty much for majority of this tier list I agree with him on. Some of these, granted, some of these consoles, these older models of gaming machines, I don't really care about like that. This was way before my time, and they could have been C or below, in my opinion. But now we get to the early 90s all the way up until now. That was kind of where my generation is at. And then he only put the Atari 7800 because it's an OG. If it wasn't for this, it wasn't for everything else. So I'm okay with that. But I'm not mad at the C list. I'm not mad at the B list. I believe the GameCube could have been at an A. A tier, I'm not so mad at. And the S tier, I agree with him. The PS4 should have been at an A. Because what these consoles did, it redefined how we play things. It was a turning point. You could clearly see the difference compared to the previous eras, or you could clearly see the difference between this, and the competition. Like the PS2 and the Sony, they 50 cent it, or they jaw ruled they competitors. You don't see the Sega, you don't see the Dreamcast no more, because when this came out, PS2, Sega was like, we might as well just pack it up because we're not gonna last long. The catalog on this thing right here is the best of the best. You can't beat it. It's my number one. Now I do think that the Switch beat out the PS2 as far as sales go, or how many millions of units have been sold, but this, you can't beat this. You can't. You just can't. We will never have anything like the impact of this was the PS2. We'll never have an impact as big as this. So I know so many memories on this, and I'm not just saying that because I was a kid. I had nostalgia with the Wii, but I knew even back then it wasn't beating no PS2. So yeah, I like the story and I like the history of how these consoles were created and brought up, and especially with this PlayStation. I didn't know they had influences from Nintendo and how they did things, and they used the CD. So yeah, I like videos like this. So majority of it I can agree with. I ain't mad at it. It's just the PS4. I would have personally put that on the A tier. And the PS4 got some bangers. I'm not even talking about the gaming catalog. When it comes to the S tier though, that's just a league. That's a different league. A tier is still good, but S tier, that's God tier right there. That's Mount Olympus. So I don't think the PS4 was touching the impact of what those machines could do. But no, I like this video, and if y'all want me to do more of stuff like this, let me know. Like this video so I can kind of see the range of what y'all like on this channel. But no, I liked it. I might do more stuff like this. It won't be as long, but I might do like a quick reaction video here and there if anything crazy pop off. We still gonna be talking about news, but nothing like super long like this video. I'm only giving y'all this because it's the new year coming into 2026. I had to give y'all something, and we are gonna be on grind mode. We are in grind mode on the second channel. If you are not subbed to that, please go and follow that channel, because I'm playing Alan Wake 2. It's been in my backlog for the past 2 years, so I had to finally get that game. It was on sale for the winter, so I had to get that. I think it was only for like $15. But if you are new, welcome. Like I said to the older viewers, please like, sub, comment down below if you want to see some more. Comment if you want to see some more like this, and I will gladly do more reaction videos for y'all. But yeah, that's gonna be my spiel, and I may be doing a live stream this upcoming weekend. But until then, this will hold y'all over. So I will see y'all on the next video. Deuces.